Welcome to Back in the Groove. If you're new here, my name's Keith, and I'm getting back into vinyl after having my collection in storage for more than 25 years. Now, in this video, I'm going to be looking at my top 10 favourite tracks that are over 10 minutes long. And in order to do that, I've set myself some ground rules. So I'm only looking at studio versions. I'm not going to include any songs by artists that are live, elongated versions with guitar solos, drum solos, etc. And I'm only allowing myself one choice by any one particular artist. Now, because my collection of vinyl is largely 30 years old or more, there is some mixed media in here as well. So there will be vinyl and CDs along the way. But let's get started with track number 10, which is The Battle of Epping Forest from Genesis's Selling England by the Pound. Now, this comes in at 11 minutes and 46 seconds. And this album was probably my introduction to prog in general, let alone my introduction to Genesis. And The Battle of Epping Forest really blew me away with its intricacy in the structure of the song, with the characterization of the different characters from the voice of Peter Gabriel, of course. And it's just a great story, and lyrically as well as musically, a really good track, and remains a favorite of mine to this day. Now, number 9 is by Kansas, and it's Song for America, which comes from Kansas's debut album, a debut self-titled album. And Kansas have to be one of my favorite all-time bands. They've got something totally unique about them, with the inclusion of the violin, the multi-vocalist approach, the keyboards, and they've got a stellar lead vocalist in Steve Walsh, of course, and in Kerry Livgren they've got a great songwriter and arranger as well, which I think is really important in some of these longer songs. And so in at number 9 is Song for America. Now, at number 8, I've got something a little bit different, and the song is called 1960 Watt, and it's by Gregory Porter from his album titled Water. And it's a great track. It's for those of you who don't know Gregory Porter, he's a contemporary male jazz vocalist. But the 1960 Watt is about the various struggles of the 60s, the shooting of Martin Luther King, various riots and things in the US, and is just a really great song. And if you're contemplating trying to get into jazz, or vocal jazz at least, honestly, Gregory Porter is absolutely stellar in my opinion. Now, in at number 7 is a band that I got into very early on the back of the Metal for Mothers album, and they became a firm favorite of mine. And they came out with the Powerslave album, and from this, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which is over 13 minutes long. And it's one of those epic Steve Harris pen songs, taking the lyrics largely from the is it Samuel Coleridge poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. So it's just this really great tale that's being told, which has got something in common with many of the tracks. They're all kind of telling these stories of, the Battle of Epping Forest. We've got The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. We've got Gregory Porter talking about the 60s and the rioting, etc. But The Rime of the Ancient Mariner is a standout Iron Maiden track, quite progressive in its structure, I think. Again, lots of sort of time changes and what have you. And I think that's one of the overarching themes of all of these songs, by nature being over 10 minutes long. They tend to be progressive in some form. Even Gregory Porter's jazz entry is, quite meandering and progressive in nature. So number 7 is The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Now, number 6 for me is from Dream Theater. Another massive, massive favorite of mine, and one of the bands that appear on this list that I could have chosen an absolute myriad of songs from. I contemplated all sorts of songs from the latest album to Octavarium to the track Home from Scenes from a Memory, etc. But I went with Learning to Live, which is about 11 and a half minutes long. And I've gone with that because this to me is an almost perfect album. Images and words is an absolutely incredible album. It's where I got introduced to Dream Theater many, many years ago. And Learning to Live just still stands out as an absolutely amazing track in so many ways. And so Learning to Live is in at number 6. Now, at number 5, we've got another band that I could have chosen lots of tracks from, and this is Spock's Beard, and the track is The Light. Not just Spock's Beard, but Neal Morse, who was obviously the main force in Spock's Beard until he found religion and went his own way. But The Light is just incredible, almost like nothing else I've heard, although very prog in nature. You've got the very quiet intro with the keys, and then in the midsection you've got kind of flamenco-y style things coming in, and Neal Morse's vocals are really good. And again, The Lights, kind of telling a story, and just a great track. Next up is an album, or a song from an album that you may have seen me show several times. But at number 4, it is the track Once Around the World by It Bites. Now, this is just under 15 minutes long. Again, it's telling this great story of kind of once around the world in a day almost. Just musically amazing. Francis Dunnery's vocals are incredible. Lyrically, it's great. I tell you what, I tried this on my deck recently when I'd put a new cartridge on, and it just sounds incredible when you're listening to it as well. So number 4 is Once Around the World by It Bites. Now, coming in at number 3 is 2112 by Rush, which is just over 20 minutes long. Now, this is one that I debated a little bit, because I did think about, some of these single songs have different movements within them. But I consider 2112 to be a single song I would listen to in its entirety. I wouldn't put it on for any particular part of the song. And so I consider it as a whole. And again, for me, obviously Rush, I could have chosen lots of tracks. Hemispheres is a real standout, of course, but I could have chosen multiple tracks by them as well. But 2112 just seems to be the almost the ultimate track. It's the one that they were probably under so much pressure making this album, and probably thought they're about to lose the record contract, and then to come out with something so different and so so groundbreaking in terms of 2112 and what they would become. I just think it's an incredible track, and again an incredible story. This totalitarian world that we find ourselves living in, run by these priests, and then this guy finds this old guitar and brings it to the priest thinking he's found something amazing, and then of course they poo-poo it. They make him destroy the guitar, and it's really kind of touching on that whole censorship of creativity, censorship of music. And of course this is before all of the big movement on censorship as well. But a great track for me in at number 3. So you might be thinking, what the hell is better than 2112? Now, remember, these are my favorites, and 2112 might be suffering from its age, its longevity in terms of how long it's been around. Maybe I'm taking it for granted a little bit. But in at number 2, for me, is The Odyssey by Symphony X. Now, The Odyssey is a 24-minute tale that starts off with this huge kind of symphonic introduction, very kind of Star Wars-esque in terms of its theme music. And that goes on and then blends into some acoustic guitar where Russell Allen's vocals come in. And I really like Russell Allen when he's singing in that more kind of softer voice of his, and he gets through those passages that are much more old school, almost Paul Rodgers-esque kind of vocals, before they get into the kind of heavier riffs, the heavier vocals, etc. But an absolutely outstanding track, and I was lucky enough to see them perform it in its entirety. But number 2 for me is The Odyssey by Symphony X. So what is number 1? And I really sort of struggled with which way around to put a lot of these. So you may be surprised at what I've chosen at number 1. But I was doing some research and listening to a lot of these tracks, and this just really hits me quite hard. Now, I don't know if some of you will recognize this particular cover, because it's not the normal cover for the album. This is a deluxe version, but the album that this is from is Pain of Salvation's Passing Light of Day, and the track in question is called On a Tuesday, and it's just over 10 minutes, 10 and a half minutes. Now, if you don't know the story of this album, it's really quite incredible. Daniel Gildenlow, who is the main guy of Pain of Salvation, pretty much writes everything, sings everything, plays pretty much everything. He suffered this problem with his back, a skin problem that turned into this flesh-eating disease, which ate a big hole in his back to the degree that he had his spine sort of exposed. And for a long period of time, I think it was really touch and go for him whether he was going to pull through this. So this album is the tale of that whole experience for him, that whole period of having the disease, being in hospital, fearing that you're gonna die, and really hits you quite hard when you listen to it. Now, I absolutely love Pain of Salvation, and one of the things that I find about them is they're very very open and very very challenging kind of lyrically. You know, they're not afraid to sort of take you in directions that might make you sort of wince a little bit, in terms of different subject matter, and this is no exception. Now, Daniel Gildenlow really sort of bears his soul in this. It's a very personal album, but on a Tuesday is a really raucous opening of a track. It starts the album with these chugging guitars, and eventually breaks into this kind of whispered spoken voice about him being back in this hospital where he was born, and talks about you know, if he lives to see another day, it will be his Tuesday number so many Tuesdays, telling you how old he is at this point. And it just, the music just, you know, takes you on such a journey. There's so many exceptional moments in this track and this album, that I had to put this at number one for me. So if you haven't heard this, do give it a try. It's absolutely stunning album for me. So there you go. That's my top 10 tracks that are over 10 minutes long. Now, I don't think that anybody out there would have chosen those 10 tracks together. So I'd be really interested to know what your 10 tracks were, or even just some longer tracks that I haven't included. And I know that there are tons from Dream Theater, as I've said, lots from Neil Morse, Spock's Beard. I could have chosen a multitude of longer songs by those artists that tend to put longer content out more often. But those are the 10 that I went with. Those are 10 tracks that I genuinely play really regularly, whether that's been on a streaming service, on vinyl, on CD, whatever. They are played really quite regularly. So hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, and do remember to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. But until next time, bye for now.